Chapter 4. The Ruins of the Undead. Night had fallen, and the flickering campfire in the center of the mercenary encampment cast restless shadows on the weary, watchful faces. After the battle in the dark forest, the group had yet to recover from their shock. But Victor had already made a new decision. We can't delay any longer. Victor's voice was low and resolute, as his gaze swept over the mercenaries gathered around the fire. The number of dark soul beasts far exceeded our expectations. Their presence is no coincidence. We need to investigate the source. A seasoned mercenary furrowed his brows. You mean, the ruins of the undead? At those words, the atmosphere grew tense. The ruins of the undead. This name had circulated among mercenaries for years. It wasn't just an ancient battlefield. It was a forbidden land that struck fear into the hearts of even the bravest adventurers. Legend had it that 1,000 years ago, that land had been the epicenter of a cataclysmic war, where both warring sides perished completely. Since then, a curse of undeath had shrouded the land, ensuring that none who set foot there returned unscathed. Alya listened in silence, her hands clenching into fists in the fire's dim glow. She knew that her soul beast was no ordinary existence, and if the ruins of the undead truly held secrets related to undead soul beasts, she had to uncover the truth. "Victor," someone asked hesitantly, "are we really going there? That place isn't just another ruin. The Empire's Night Order itself has suffered devastating losses there." Victor took a deep breath and nodded solemnly. "Which is precisely why we must find out the truth. The dark soul beast didn't appear in that abandoned village by chance. If they are connected to the ruins of the undead, we have no choice. Either we face this threat head-on, or we wait for it to descend upon us." Silence settled over the mercenaries, but in the end, they accepted the decision without further protest. The next morning, at dawn, the mercenary group packed their gear and set out for the ruins. Along the way, whispers of the ruins of the undead filled the air. They say countless undead warriors are buried there, unable to find peace. Their spirits now wander as vengeful wraiths. I've heard something even worse. One of the generals from that war never truly died. Instead, he became some kind of undead overlord, forever guarding the ruins. The Empire tried to seal the place off, but no matter how many knights they sent, none ever returned alive. These rumors cast a heavy mood over the group. Though seasoned warriors, even the mercenaries couldn't shake off the unease creeping into their hearts. Alya, however, remained silent. Only she knew that as they drew closer to the ruins, her undead soul beast grew increasingly restless. In her mind, a deep, ethereal whisper had begun to echo, as though something in the ruins was waiting for her. She tightened her grip on her sword, her heartbeat quickening. Arrival at the ruins. When they finally reached the ruins of the undead, the sight before them stole their breath away. A vast battlefield stretched out before them. Broken stone pillars, crumbling walls, tattered war banners, all silent testaments to a long-forgotten war. The air was thick with the damp scent of decay, and the earth beneath their feet seemed to have absorbed the blood of the fallen, leaving behind a somber, unsettling presence. Everywhere they stepped, shattered armor and rusted weapon fragments crunched underfoot. "This place really gives me the creeps," Carl muttered under his breath, glancing around uneasily. Alya, however, stood frozen, staring into the ruins. In her mind's eye, visions surfaced, scenes both foreign and eerily familiar. She saw flames consuming the battlefield, undead legions clashing against imperial forces, black spears piercing through soldiers, staining the earth crimson. And in the center of it all, a towering figure loomed, crimson eyes burning with undeniable authority. She snapped back to reality, cold sweat forming on her brow. Had she just seen an illusion? Or was it a buried memory? Alya? Carl's voice pulled her back. You okay? Forcing a smile, she shook her head. I'm fine. It's just... the air here is suffocating. Victor scanned the surroundings, his expression grim. Stay alert. This place could be dangerous. Search carefully. The mercenaries spread out cautiously, but the deeper they ventured, the eerier the ruins became. The wind howled through the crumbling remains, whispering like unseen specters. But the most unsettling thing was, it was too quiet. No beasts, no soul beasts, not even the buzzing of insects. As if every living thing had been swallowed by this cursed land. The awakening. As the group searched, Alya's steps suddenly halted. Her gaze fell upon a half-buried black stone monument. The stone was etched with intricate symbols, some of which seemed strangely familiar. Almost unconsciously, she reached out. The moment her fingertips brushed its surface, a surge of freezing, soul energy flooded her mind. The whispers in her ears sharpened into a distinct voice, deep, ancient, and commanding. You have returned. Alya's eyes widened. A cold chill gripped her heart as she yanked her hand back, only to find a faint black sigil now imprinted on her palm, a symbol that looked like an ancient rune. She stumbled backward, panic rising within her. But before she could react further, the ruins trembled. The very ground beneath them shuddered, as if something deep underground had stirred. What's happening? A mercenary shouted in alarm. Carl drew his sword, scanning their surroundings warily. Everyone stay on guard. Something's waking up. Victor's face darkened as his eyes locked onto Alya. Alya, what did you do just now? Alya opened her mouth, but no words came out. Because the undead soul beast within her was raging wildly, its presence overwhelming her senses. A suffocating pressure was rising from the depths of the ruins. Something ancient, something long buried, had just awakened. The tremors within the ruins gradually subsided, yet an indescribable sense of oppression permeated the air. The mercenary group members raised their weapons, scanning their surroundings warily, while Alya stood motionless, the black mark on, her palm still radiating a faint heat, as though some unknown force was resonating with her. Victor's gaze was sharp as he slowly approached her, his voice low and scrutinizing. Alya, what exactly did you do? Alya pressed her lips tightly together and shook her head. I just touched that stone tablet. Carl frowned and looked at the black stone tablet, which was covered in intricate inscriptions. Though he could not decipher the symbols, the eerie aura they emitted unsettled him. These characters might be the language of the ancient Undead Legion. An older member of the mercenary group turned pale upon hearing this. The Undead Legion, that is no mere legend. It is said that their warriors continue to obey their master's commands even in death, making them the most terrifying forbidden force in the Empire's history. A chill ran through the group at his words. Victor swept his gaze around and said, sternly, whatever happened here in the past, our mission is to investigate, not to be frightened away. Stay alert and proceed. The mercenary group nodded in response, setting aside their doubts about Alya and cautiously advancing into the ruins. The interior of this ancient battlefield was far more vast than expected. Broken stone pillars were scattered throughout, along with shattered weapons and rusted armor. Deep sword marks and embedded arrowheads marred the ground, as if echoes of the battle fought here centuries ago still lingered. The walls bore a series of strange relief carvings depicting a fierce battle. At the center of the scene stood a towering figure clad in black armor, surrounded by an aura of the undead. Beneath him, thousands of undead warriors clashed against another army adorned in silver armor. Above them all, the vague outline of a massive creature loomed, perhaps an ancient spirit beast. What is this? A mercenary whispered in awe. A relic of the undead war. But that shadow, "Who is it?" another murmured. Alya's gaze was locked onto the very center of the relief. The image of the black-armored general struck an inexplicable chord within her, an eerie sense of familiarity washing over her. Even the undead spirit beast within her stirred slightly the moment she laid eyes on the carving. She couldn't resist the urge to touch one of the inscriptions, yet the instant her fingertips made contact, boom! The entire ruins seemed to awaken. A deep rumbling sound resonated from beneath the ground, and the surrounding air turned deathly cold. Alya jerked her hand back, eyes widening in alarm. Her undead spirit beast was in turmoil, its power surging uncontrollably from within her. Wisps of ghostly blue energy seeped out, flowing into the cracks in the ground. No. Alya's spirit beast is out of control. The mercenaries retreated cautiously, eyes filled with wariness, but Alya was powerless to suppress the rampaging energy. She felt her consciousness being invaded by an unfamiliar presence, one that carried an ancient and commanding whisper. It echoed in her mind, as though trying to awaken something that had long slumbered. The bloodline shall return. Alya's pupils constricted. This voice. Victor sensed the impending danger and shouted, "Everyone, fall back!" The moment his words fell, the earth trembled violently. Jagged cracks split across the ground as black soul energy surged forth. Then, one by one, shattered suits of armor began to rise. The warriors who had perished on this battlefield centuries ago were being reawakened by Alya's resonance. Dozens of skeletal soldiers clawed their way up from the depths, their hollow eye sockets burning with eerie blue flames. Despite the decay, they still clutched rusted swords and shields. From the dark recesses of the ruins, heavy footsteps echoed, ominously, heralding the arrival of something far more terrifying. The mercenaries' expressions twisted in horror. "What in the abyss is happening? Prepare for battle!" a mercenary shouted, but before he could react, an undead warrior lunged at him with a rusted blade. Clang! Carl intercepted the attack, crossing his twin swords to block the blow. Yet the sheer force behind the strike sent a numbing shock up his arm. Gritting his teeth, he bellowed, "These creatures are much stronger than ordinary undead. Stay on guard." Victor's longsword flashed, cleaving a skeletal warrior in half. But even after being bisected, the undead did not fall. It twisted unnaturally, and began to rise once more, as though bound by an undying force. Alya's breath came in rapid gasps. She could feel it, every single undead warrior's soul energy resonating with her undead spirit beast, as if they were awaiting something, awaiting her command. These undead. Did I summon them? Her heart pounded violently, and her grip on her sword tightened involuntarily. But before she could process her thoughts, a deep, ancient growl reverberated from the depths of the ruins. "You shall return to dust." The group's eyes widened in horror as a massive figure began to rise from the ruins. It was a colossal spirit beast, its body covered in black bone armor. Its glowing blue eyes burned with unfathomable power, and its razor-sharp claws gleamed with the aura of death. Upon its forehead, an ancient necromantic sigil pulsed ominously. This was the commander of the Undead Legion. Damn it. Victor cursed under his breath. This isn't just an ordinary undead spirit beast. The mercenaries tensed, their fear reaching its peak. Alya's heart sank, because she could hear it. That voice, in her mind, calling her name once more. "Come forth, my bloodline." The moment the battle erupted, the entire ruin transformed into a fiery inferno of chaos. The undead army awoke from beneath the earth, their skeletal remains engulfed in eerie blue soul flames. Clad in tattered armor, they raised their corroded weapons and charged mercilessly toward the mercenary group. Each clash of blades sent ripples of spectral energy through the air, thick with the chilling scent of death. "Hold the line!" Victor roared, his longsword slicing through the air, cleaving a skeleton warrior in half. Yet instead of crumbling to dust, the shattered remains reassembled, compelled by an unseen force to fight on. The mercenaries quickly formed a defensive formation, shields interlocked, swords poised to strike. But the undead warriors were far stronger than expected. Their blades could not completely vanquish them, only prolonging the relentless assault. Amidst the chaos, Alya became the center of everyone's attention. Standing in the heart of the battlefield, her soul beast had spiraled completely out of control. Alya's undead beast radiated an unprecedented power, waves of blue soul energy surging violently outward. Every tendril of this energy touched the undead warriors, making them even more frenzied. Worse yet, her own body seemed to be eroding under an invisible force. Her mind grew hazy, a deep murmur echoing within her consciousness, a voice ancient and formidable, stirring from the depths of her soul. Return, bloodline of the dead. No, something's wrong. Alya shuddered violently, trying to rein in her soul energy, but she had lost all control. Her beast continued to unleash its devastating power, not just against their enemies, but now also affecting her allies. Carl, who had been locked in combat with a skeleton warrior, was suddenly blasted back by a massive wave of soul energy. He crashed into a stone pillar with a grunt, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. "Alya, what the hell are you doing?" he gasped, eyes filled with disbelief. Alya looked down at her trembling hands, sheer terror in her gaze. "No, I didn't." She had never meant to attack her comrades, yet her beast was autonomously devouring the remnants of the undead's power, growing stronger, its aura emanating an all-too-familiar oppression. This feeling. Victor's expression darkened as he observed the rampaging soul beast, his brows furrowed as if realizing something truly terrifying. In the midst of the battlefield, Alya's beast ran rampant. The undead warriors, as if responding to its command, abandoned their assault on the mercenaries and instead encircled her, waiting. Every mercenary present felt their hearts sink. She might be a descendant of the Undead Legion. Someone whispered in fear. Impossible. The Undead Legion was wiped out by the Empire 1,000 years ago, another mercenary countered. But his uncertainty was palpable. Victor's expression was graver than anyone else's. He locked eyes with Alya, a flicker of realization flashing across his gaze. No, if she really is of their bloodline, then this is far worse than we imagined. The mercenaries' eyes turned toward Alya, some filled with doubt, others with fear, confusion, and even murderous intent. Alya took in their stares, dread creeping into her heart as she realized one chilling truth. At this moment, she had completely lost the mercenary group's trust. The battle within the ruins had finally subsided. Shattered remains of the undead littered the ground, and traces of blue soul energy still lingered in the air, cold and oppressive. The mercenaries quietly tended to the battlefield, yet none of them met Alya's gaze. She stood beside a collapsed stone pillar, her heart pounding. Her hands still trembled, as if the terrifying force she had lost control of moments ago continued to course through her veins. She understood now. She had become the most dangerous and unstable presence within the group. The silence was finally broken by a low, grim voice. "We can't keep going like this." One of the mercenaries, Locke, spoke in a grave tone. His gaze lingered on Alya, filled with both wariness and unease. "What do you mean by that, Locke?" Carl stepped forward, positioning himself protectively in front of Alya, his eyes flashing with anger. Locke let out a cold scoff. "Her soul beast is clearly not something ordinary. That loss of control just now almost got all of us killed. Can you really say with certainty that she's just a regular soul beast wielder?" The other mercenaries fell silent, their expressions shifting as they turned to look at Alya. The power she had unleashed was undeniably abnormal. Even the undead warriors had seemed to kneel before her will, something no common soul beast should be capable of. Enough. Victor's firm voice cut through the growing tension. His gaze was steady and unreadable as he scanned the group. No matter who she is, we're all on the same side for now. Turning against each other will only put us in even greater danger. Locke was clearly still dissatisfied, but didn't argue further. The other mercenaries refrained from speaking as well. However, the change in their eyes was undeniable. A crack had already formed. As the uneasy silence stretched on, Vivian suddenly spoke up. It seems like these undead were awakened by some external force. Perhaps we should investigate the center of these ruins. Victor nodded and led the group forward. As they ventured deeper, the air grew colder. The walls were covered in ancient inscriptions, exuding an eerie and enigmatic presence. Some tattered murals depicted warriors cloaked in black, leading an undead army as they marched upon the land. Eventually, they arrived at a broken stone altar. At its center lay a damaged metallic mask, dark in color, its edges inscribed with cryptic symbols that faintly pulsed with soul energy. What is this? Carl furrowed his brow and reached out to touch it, only for Victor to stop him. Victor's expression was grim as he studied the mask. In a low voice, he murmured, "This isn't just any artifact. The inscriptions on it bear the royal seal of the Undead Kingdom." At his words, every mercenary's eyes widened in shock. The Undead Kingdom, a forbidden name wiped from history. 1,000 years ago, it had waged war against the Empire, only to be completely eradicated. Any record of its existence had been buried, deemed too dangerous to be known. Why would an artifact of the Undead Kingdom be here? Someone muttered in fear. Alya silently stared at the mask, her heartbeat suddenly accelerating. A strange, irresistible force seemed to draw her toward it, as if it had once belonged to her. Slowly she reached out. The moment her fingers brushed against the cold metal, an overwhelming surge of soul energy crashed into her mind. A battlefield consumed by flames, countless undead warriors clad in black armor roaring as a city crumbled, the sky painted red with blood. A towering man in a dark cloak stood atop the walls, his piercing gaze cutting through the chaos, locking onto a girl dressed in white. "Alya, this is your fate." "Ah." Alya's eyes flew open as she gasped for breath, cold sweat trickling down her forehead. Carl rushed to support her, his voice urgent. "What's wrong?" Alya's face was deathly pale. The visions, memories that did not belong to her, still surged through her mind. The fires of war, the cries of the dead, the deafening roars of the undead warriors, and that man's deep, resonant voice. She had no idea who he was. But she did know one thing. Her identity was far more complicated than she had ever imagined.